Welcome to your favorite podcast. It is Love is Black, and we are happy to have Tiffany Lindley with us today. How are you, Miss Lindley?
I am wonderful, believe it or not. I've been up since probably 6 a.m., but this is something I've been looking forward to all day.
Likewise, and thank you. You're nice and lively for somebody who hasn't had a lot of sleep. Well,
that's the benefit of ADHD. So big ups to my brain,
Nice.
So my first question, because we're going to dive right in, is one of the reasons I was really happy to get to talk to you is because you deal with mental health.
Yes, I do.
And in our culture, we don't like talking about mental health.
What is that? What is mental health? You alive. That's it.
Yeah, or sometimes it has a negative connotation where it just seems like, JoJo's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they just crazy. Just let them be crazy over there. But most of it requires distance, right? We're going to push you away if mental health is discussed, right?
So what made you, or why did you decide to make this, your career? Tell us about how you got it.
Well, I decided a long time ago, probably as a teenager, believe it or not, I wanted to be a teacher like my mom for a long time because I loved talking, and okay, people don't get mad at the teacher when she talks a lot. So maybe I could do that job. And then, oh wait, lawyers, they get to talk a lot in front of people and nobody gets mad at them. And I was like, well, I'm not really good at lying though. That's the other thing. I'm a little too honest for my own good. I'm a great actress. If you give me lines, I can perform. But if I have to, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, that like freaked me out. So I'm like, okay, probably not going to be a lawyer. But I learned about psychology and learned about, oh, wow, I actually like to listen. I learned not only that I like to talk, but I also like to listen. And I, my family, they teased me. They were like, oh, we remember when you were like 5 and you would play with your Barbie dolls and y'all would have group therapy sessions, it seemed. I was like, I thought I was playing Oprah, but okay. So I think it's just kind of always been my destiny to be a therapist in some way, or to be a healer, or just helping people kind of deal with their feelings. I don't know. There's no flashbulb moment, but definitely once I got on this path of psychology and mental health, I just kept going with it. And so I've been blessed to have a pretty good career for 10 or 15 years, just working with people and really liking, I would say, about 95% of my jobs. So yeah, it started young. It seems like something that I was made to do, but it's not the only thing I can do, which I appreciate as well. Like, Lord, please give me more than one talent, so I don't only have to deal with sad things all the time. But what I've learned about mental health is that it really is about the full human experience. And that's what I've enjoyed about having my own company, is that, yes, I can highlight the other side, not just if I deal with mental health, I'm going to feel bad. It's like, but feeling bad gets you to feeling good, if you do it in the appropriate way.
Yes, I like that concept of feeling bad leads you to feeling good. But is there a way for someone to be feeling really good, but potentially still need to check on their mental health?
Yes. Balance, right?
Right.
We're really good at deceiving ourselves as human beings. And so it's not a matter of things are going too good, the shoe's going to drop. It's not about having anxiety. It's more about making sure that how you're relating to the other people in your life is as good as you feel about your life too. I could be on a high and be successful, and it's but I'm not on an island. So if I'm feeling great and the people around me are off and crappy, something's might be off. It may not just be because I'm just that exceptional. So the beauty of mental health is that it's never really about your mind. It's always about you in relationship to the environment you're in and the people that you're around.
I like that.
Okay. So since you're kind of talking about the job that you have, what in particular do you not like about what you have to do?
About being a therapist? About being well, when I was working in nonprofit and working in administration, that I enjoyed it, but I didn't like being told no. like if I had a good idea. So that's one aspect of my career that I don't have to worry about. But as far as a therapist, what don't I like? When people don't show up. You know, my clients all pay, they pay their bills for the most part, or if the check's delayed. Otherwise, the work itself, because I can control how much I take in, and now that I'm working privately, yeah, when I was working in nonprofits and working in community agencies, I couldn't control the pace. It was somebody else is filling up your schedule. So 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock, you're seeing people maybe 35, 45-minute lunch. So that wasn't fun, but it did build my stamina. It gave me a lot of experiences in a short amount of time. So I'm grateful for it. But when I was going through it, I was kind of boring because once I got home, I was a, zombie, had to kind of decompress. So I guess if I had to just say something, it's being kind of filled up with other people's stories and trying to like find myself again after doing that. That would probably be the hardest part, but as far as like something I dislike, now I'm doing my own thing. It's just the administration, the note writing, the tedium parts of the job, but every client is different. Every session is different. So I get that variety that I really crave in my work.
I like that you said that sometimes you have to like decompress and kind of separate the two, because I wouldn't be able to do what you do because no, like even when my friends tell me stuff, like I like absorb it, right? So then it becomes like a part of me, like, oh my gosh, like life is going not so well for her. Oh, like now I'm sad. And then,
yeah, now I got to figure out how to help her. Like, oh my gosh,
know,
she
right?
doesn't want me to help. And yeah.
Imagine doing that with multiple people all day long. I would just never recover.
Right. It's a combination of number one, the person, number two, the skills that we're supposed to be taught. Because I train counselors too. And so I'm like, all right, it doesn't sound like you learned those boundaries we talked about and that you had supposed to have done in graduate school. And really having really good training and really having a place to decompress. Like you need all three. As far as like just knowing you have the capacity to help other people and not, but also know when to draw the line. Because this is one of those jobs that if you don't have the boundaries, you can burn out. Like I know a lot of counselors that just do not want to do therapy anymore because they've been so overwhelmed and burnt out. And I've been lucky. I mean, luckily I was actually trained by white men that have very strong boundaries. And they taught me that up front, like, oh no, you don't take that home with you. Don't worry about that. Oh, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I can be like kind of snarky with my clients. Oh yeah. You got to do it with this, like this. And I'm like, all right. So it gave me a sensitivity to just know what kind of people can handle a certain type of confrontation. And sometimes that confrontation is what takes some of the pressure off. Because with your friends, you really can't confront them right away when they're in the feelings. Right. But I'm trained to get you while you're in the feelings so that you can do something about it right away versus, all right, well, I'm gonna wait till she calms down. I'm gonna wait till she's not sad. And then I'm gonna tell her the truth. And that really doesn't work in therapy because that's not what they're paying me for. They're paying for me to help them now. But it's scary when you're learning how to do that because it's like, I don't want to get cussed out. But then once you get cussed out once, it's like, oh, that's not it's fine. It's not about me anyway. It's about your childhood trauma. And you start creating these boundaries of like, oh, I'm more of a mirror for these people. I'm reflecting their experience, other people's experience of them, their own experience, but it's not really about me. And when you can get that in your mind, it's a lot easier to do this work. But you still got to decompress. You still got to vent about it. You still got to like, oh gosh, I done told this girl 50 times to stop talking to him, but I can't tell her what to do because it's not my job to give advice. It's my job to guide. And you got to talk yourself through it because you really do care. I really care about my clients deeply. And so it's work to decompress from the work, but it also gives me a lot of joy because it's like I'm experiencing their life with them while also experiencing my own life. Like I don't live through them, but in those hours that we're together, we're sharing that space, and that's truly a great experience for me. But it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Yes. Okay, I was gonna ask, I think it's a really good reference to start off with. I don't know if you watched the show This Is Us.
Yes.
Okay. Randall's character, he had a little journey with, dealing with his mental health and going to
Mhm.
seek out therapy and help. And with that, he found that he identified more seeing another Black counselor as opposed to seeing anybody else. Is that
Mhm.
something that you find helps to overcome a barrier for some of, because there is a stigma within the culture, the feeling that maybe you should have just gone to church, or you should just take your problems to Jesus, or something else should have happened other than you seeking out mental health advice
Right.
from a professional. Is that a barrier that you feel like, needs to be overcome, where people should potentially seek out counselors of their same race?
Yeah, and yes, and unfortunately, it's like they've done the research on it for years and years. Like when I was in school 15 years ago, they were saying that having a counselor that's as similar to you as possible, culturally, age, race wise, is sometimes the best outcome, because the relationship is what's healing you. Of course, you have the techniques, you have the knowledge, but if you can't be vulnerable with this quote unquote stranger, you're not going to get the full benefit of a therapeutic process. And so, yeah, like I've heard so many horror stories of, clients of color going to non-BIPOC therapists and building a great bond and being very vulnerable, and then kind of hearing maybe, racist or classist or just beliefs behind the therapist that really make them not trust them anymore and not trust the therapeutic process at the same time. So not only did they lose their therapist, they also kind of lost their faith in the ability to heal through therapy. So it definitely is beneficial. And those people that are kind of apprehensive to therapy, I would recommend you look for someone that does have a similar background. And we're encouraged. Therapy, being a therapist is a weird role. It's not like, your friend that's a real estate agent. Like you could go to high school with your real estate agent and be best friends, and your best friend can sell you a house. And as long as your friendship is solid, there's no ethical or legal issues. With a therapist, I can't tell you how many times my best friend I'll just pay you. We won't tell anybody. No, I have like ethical boundaries I have to follow. And I can't, the relationship has to be organic as a therapy relationship. I can't kind of know you or know of you. Every once in a while, there's exceptions because of just scarcity and availability of the right therapist for clients. So I was like, okay, I knew you maybe 10 years ago, and this is your kid. I don't know your kid, so I can see your kid, but I can't see you, or okay, I haven't seen you since we were 8, and you're married and you want to come to therapy. Okay, and you try for a therapist. All right, maybe this is what you need. But for the most part, you want to kind of have that anonymity. But you don't want to be so foreign, like a completely different culture, and that person's not doing the work to learn about your culture, that you get, a year in, and then you get this big bombshell, like, oh my God, you have Confederate flags in your office. I just noticed that. Like, you know what, that happened. That's
After a whole year.
It's just a very extreme example. Oh, but I have heard of like therapists talking about maybe their partner, and like, oh my gosh, we have these political disagreements, but we make it work. And it's like, why would you want to be with someone who doesn't share your values? And how are you going to encourage me to like be firm on my values and try to meet a person that shares that, and you're giving me an example of that, you're not doing that yourself. So it's like we are supposed to kind of have a boundary of like self-disclosure, but we also have to self-disclose at the same time, because you have to be a real person. And when you have that racial difference, the way Black people self-disclose and the way white people self-disclose just culturally is different. There's like this niceness that kind of comes with white culture, like smiley, and I'm going to be nice to you. Whereas with Black, it's like truth is at the center of what I'm saying. As long as we got the truth, however you feel about it, you got to deal with it. Whereas, what I've seen when I've even trained white therapists is like, okay, why aren't you saying this? Why aren't you saying that? Well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Not your job. It's not your job not to hurt their feelings. It's your job to help them deal with their feelings. If they don't feel their feelings, they can't deal with them. We're back at square one. Why are they here? And so yeah, it makes a difference, the background, the demographics, but as long as you can connect on some deeper level, that person's actively working to learn about your culture, or even just be curious, even if the therapist doesn't know anything, like they're supposed to. It's in our ethical code. You're supposed, cultural competency is like number 3 on the list of things we're supposed to know. And so, if they ever like question your historical references, or if they, well, I don't think that really happens. Your opinion is not important here. Like, tell me more about that. Like, wow, that really happens. I've never heard of that. Please give me more. Because I work with people from all kinds of backgrounds, and I try to learn a little bit of everything. Oh, is it like this? And then they'll give me more. As long as I can like get a little tidbit, people will fill in the gaps, but just acting like that it doesn't exist, or that it's not possible because you can't believe it, that's not good. That's not a good relationship builder. So yeah, it's important. It helps. And there's a lot of elements that are supposed to support counselors, actually, therapists and counselors actually making sure they make that a part of their work, is to know the people that they could possibly work with on a deeper level.
So talking about the people that you see, one question I have is, I don't know, I think maybe when I was younger, before I kind of maybe looked into this more, do people just get this idea that, seeing a therapist is, I'm just going to go see somebody and I'm going to talk? Do people not think, recognize that there's going to be some work
involved,
some real work?
That's why we have consultations, right? That's why I have them, because I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea, and they think that I'm not going to say something. Like I said, I told y'all I like to talk. So, but I don't overtalk. I try my best not to overtalk clients. If I do, it's because I'm trying to interrupt the thought. I'm like, oh, you're trying to run from something. I'll jump in like that. But for the most part, giving them the space to really talk. There's different styles of therapy, and like there is a style where it literally is just the person talking. I don't like that style. I don't really think it's a style. I think it's a foundational skill. It's called person-centered. It's like, okay, yeah, unconditional regard. I listen actively. I'm going to reflect what you're saying. And then what? That does not create change. It just creates a different relationship. And so every counselor is supposed to be able to do that. But at some point, our job is to help you formulate a plan and give you a structure and kind of an outline of like, okay, this is how your mind works in my mind. And this is how we can structure the plan to get to the goals you have. But there are going to be sessions where sometimes a person just vents and they apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm like, this is your time. Yeah, if you needed to get that out. And that's okay. And so again, that relationship is so important, that clients can kind of test out behaviors they would do with real life. Like, do you tend to apologize to people when you express yourself? I do that. Why do I do that? And now we have a whole new conversation and a whole new kind of rabbit hole to go down, because you vented about that lady at work you can't stand. And I can't stand it either. That's a part of it too, is like feeling with that person. Because sometimes that's all you need is that validation. Like, you're not crazy for being pissed. That lady was a jerk. And this is why. I'm going to repeat all the reasons you told me she was a jerk to you and why you don't deserve that either. Now what we're going to do about it. And it just, the difference between venting to a friend and a therapist is that they're going to give you some tools to actually resolve the conflict versus just sitting in it and stewing in it with you. We gonna stew for a little bit because I'm with you. Sometimes I get mad at some of my clients. I'm like, you don't express your anger. I'm expressing for you and show you what it looks like. Because I'm pissed. But yeah, sometimes you need to vent. Sometimes you need to have the conversation, but don't stop going to your therapist once you got everything out, because that's the most important part. That's the part where you start doing the work. Now that it's out there, what do I do with it?
Okay. So I want to shift gears a little bit from individuals and talking about individuals to kind of talking about couples or dealing with relationships.
Mm-hmm.
When is the right time for a couple to seek therapy?
Ooh. As soon as they think that they want to be committed to each other. That's the perfect time. I think I want to commit to you. Let's go to therapy. Like, it seems too soon, but it's so important at some point in your relationship that you at least have a relationship with a therapist or a coach or someone that can kind of be an external eye, because it's just hard to do the relationship thing. And the way, as quickly as our culture has changed, it's like, oh, we know how to do this in a healthy way now. Oh, got to unlearn everything that we've learned that didn't work. But jokes aside, though, like premarital therapy and counseling, I've worked with dating couples and cohabitating couples. I find that it is helpful. And then even like newlyweds, early relationship, kind of in the middle of the high is probably the best time, because it's not necessarily going to bring you down, but you're going to be really motivated to implement the changes because you know the outcome. Whereas a lot of my work as a couples therapist is reminding people why they love each other. You told me you loved each other. I heard this, and I'm going to give it right back to you. This is what you said you loved. Let's try to find that in each other again. So yeah, anytime, but I know it's hardest when both the passion, anger, and the like motivation are low. That's when it's the hardest, but it's still not impossible as long as both people's feet are in the door. If somebody's foot is out the door, that's when it's the hardest for me to try to work with a couple. And I try to prepare them for the worst. It's like, all right, I can already tell you're checked out. And you wanna seek support before somebody is like completely checked out, because it just makes the work so much heavier on one person. And you can't do that in a relationship. It takes both people putting in the effort.
That's a lot of information. Okay, so
Sorry, I do that a lot.
I know, right?
ADHD, kind of info jumping, my bad.
Okay. So it's a little too late when they're already like kind of, consciously uncoupling. But
it's not impossible, because I'm an optimist. It's
harder.
You got to commit.
It's harder. More
it's
difficult.
Hard. Yeah.
Should there be some element at that point of individual therapy and couple therapy, or would it just be best to do?
It really depends on the couple.
Okay.
If neither clients ever had individual, if there is a like childhood trauma that's in between them that keeps kind of causing some of the conflict, if there's infidelity, definitely individual for both people. If there is parenting struggles, you want to make sure, again, there's not a trauma element that's not being dealt with. But there are therapists like myself that will address a couple with the childhood trauma in the couple session too. So it's just really what the couple has capacity for. But if there's those big conflicts or those big issues like infidelity and trauma, you will get the most benefit from kind of having your own work done, again, to encourage motivation to change behavior and not only see your partner from one point of view, but now you have someone that's looking at you intensely and then someone that's looking at the couple intensely. And so you can't say, oh, they're just on their side. It's like, no, you got somebody on your side, quote unquote, but they're also there to hold you accountable, and same thing for your partner. So it's not always necessary, but it can be, if you find the right couples therapist, they can kind of handle as much as possible. But at some point, you'll know, like, all right, I can't take over the couple session talking about my stuff, so let me go find some place to talk about that. And yeah, usually clients will ask me before I even suggest it. Like, do you think it might be helpful? Not gonna discourage it. I tend to get a lot of my individual clients that want to move into couples work with me too. It does save them time, kind of telling the story, and it allows me to build a bond, kind of a clean bond with the non-client partner. And like those first couple of sessions, I'm like, it's really just their session. I'm really just trying to get to know them because I know your side already. I'm not even gonna, so you can't come in and try to distort anything because I already know what you think. But it also makes that second partner feel like, oh, okay, she's actually gonna be non-biased. Because once it's a couple, the relationship is my client, not you individually. And some clients don't really like that. They feel like they're losing me. And I'm like, I told you, like, I can't I can't be only your cheerleader at this point. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm gonna call you out. But yeah, it really just depends on the right couples therapist and where that individual is in their own personal growth. If they have the awareness to really benefit from the individual work at the same time.
Since you mentioned it, I mean, we've done this podcast for a while, and one of the early things we talked about is infidelity. And for me, and this is strictly me, not any other person in the world, but with Bob, I love this woman. Long before we got married, I'm like, I knew I was gonna marry her. I told her I have one thing. I can do anything. If you cheat, it's a wrap. That's the one thing that I said. And then when we've had people come on, I always ask them to get a feel. I know you don't have to give your personal opinion about that, but what's it like dealing with a couple where somebody had some infidelity, and what kind of battle is that? Have you found that you can save those couples? What's the vibe you get with people in that situation?
Yeah, it does hurt to feel that with them, but I think as far as saving, of course I save no one, but I've seen it work out and I've seen it not work out, and I've seen people, somewhere in the middle where it's like, all right, I don't know if that helped, but you stopped coming, so we'll see. But jokes aside, it is, I'm an optimist. I believe that humans have the capacity to do literally anything, but dealing with infidelity, the technique that I use, I really do love it because it allows me to step in and like hold that space for clients and really, okay, you're so hurt, you can't speak, but I'm going to do my best. And you let me know if I'm speaking well for you. And that's a very rare thing in counseling, is a counselor speaking for a client. But in that situation, it's like the words, they're literally in their feelings so high that they can't articulate it. And so it's kind of me, the counselor, using their experience and their knowledge of that person to really try to communicate to the person who hurt them, the betrayer, if you will. And also having empathy for the betrayer and like, hey, you're not this person forever. Like you were someone that betrayed them, but you can't ever see yourself as more than this. I can't convince them that you're going to be more than this too. And so that's what normally happens, I think, in most relationships where there's infidelity. Either we avoid it, or the person who did the bad thing is trying to avoid full culpability because they wouldn't accept the same thing. It's like, well, they did, they try to deflect, and it's like, you got to sit in this, stew in it. Well, we're not going to stew in it that long. If you avoid stewing in it, it's just going to make me turn the heat up more. And that's what I think is the hardest part. And as far as like the person that was betrayed, like them coming to terms with, okay, I didn't do certain things. I didn't cause them to do this, but I could have prevented this by protecting myself more, and I didn't. I allowed myself to be almost too trusting, almost too vulnerable. And it's not that you can't be vulnerable and trust in your relationship anymore, but you have to actively trust every day. So like getting them to learn that you were blindly trusting, and I need you to trust with your eyes open. Like, all right, I'm trusting you, versus, all right, I trust you, and looking away and not having that awareness of like, that's interesting. And then not having the motivation to actually question it versus, making the excuse in my head, they didn't mean anything by it. Or this, we love to fortune tell and mind read in our mind, and it causes a lot of miscommunication, when in reality, sometimes just asking will get you so far or help somebody make a different decision. So yeah, I mean, like my personal values, which is why I've waited so long to be in a committed relationship. I started working in domestic violence, so that was a deterrent, right? 24, 25, working with people that have been in abusive relationships, and also working with perpetrators of violence. So yeah, I did not, become asexual or anything, but I did, I was very, very like, everything was, and sometimes people try to use that as a way to manipulate and say, oh, it's just because you do that work. Is that you? Like, no, this is just your behavior. Like, don't try me. but getting that power to call out BS is kind of what I love to give the betrayer, the client that was hurt, because I've had men and women that have been the person that's been cheated on, and like, hey, you need to, feel this anger, feel this pain, because it'll get you to your power, and you can say what you need to say without feeling any guilt about it, because you are entitled to protect yourself. And as far as, again, the person that is the betrayer, the one who's done the infidelity, reminding them of their values. Like, are you someone who actually values commitment? Well, yeah. So what happened in you to where you allowed your emotions to make that decision versus your values guiding your decision to prioritize your partner, and kind of working them through that process? So yeah, it personally, again, that's not a value that I have, which is why I've ended a lot of relationships very quickly. Not because I'm a serial dater like my friends used to think, but because I can't ignore the knowledge I have. It's like, oh, I can't be an example. I'd rather be a single couples therapist than a couples therapist in a bad relationship. So, I'm lucky to have a committed partner. We're not married yet, but again, we're taking our time, we're keeping our eyes open, trusting with our eyes open. And it's in the cards, but it's no rush because the commitment is already there and all the other foundational pieces are there. So yeah, it can be difficult. It feels terrible, but I'm an empath. I don't know if I mentioned that, and so I've had to train myself of like, all right, this is not mine though. I can feel it with you. Oh, it's not mine. I can just throw it out as soon as that session is over, and hopefully that person goes away feeling relief and feeling lighter because they were able to express that pain.
Oh, God. Is there a way to foster a safe space without a counselor? Like, if you're trying to overcome something on your own, I guess, in some way, shape, or form, is there a way to foster a safe space for being able to express yourself?
Well, yeah. It's gonna take education though, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So finding, good self-help books. I can't think of any off the top of my head because I've read so many in my life. They've all just become a lump of information. I can't remember the titles. I don't know nobody's name. I got to keep other stuff in my brain. But yeah, being able to like read about, why things don't work. I guess us learning out the excuses. If I learn what the excuses would be for me not doing this, then I have nothing left for motivation to do it. And sometimes it will take some journaling. Sometimes journals are a good way to really look back at the past and kind of see the events that have led you to make this my behavior. It's like, I wasn't always like this. What changed me? And then going back and kind of reading your own story. Like, oh, I guess I did get that one bad breakup at 17. And after that, I said, never again. When somebody raised their voice to me, they raise their voice, I'm breaking up, even though it's like, okay, people yell sometimes. It's kind of unreasonable, like, dang. But we make up these rules to protect ourselves, but we rarely examine them. So, self-examination is an important part of therapeutic process, even if you're not in therapy. You can be on a therapeutic journey without a therapist. It's just a lot of heavy lifting and making sure you have supportive people. Again, coaches are a good alternative, but they just tend to be twice as expensive sometimes. And as far as like what they help you with, it's hard to regulate, can't really, tell. But there are some good ones out there. I mean, I consider myself a relationship coach too. So I have my education experience to kind of support that. But yeah, it's going to take education and then practice. Like you have to try it out, and I guess letting your partner know that you're trying it out versus just trying it out all dry, because we like consistency. Relationships help us regulate ourselves, and so if we're in this pattern of I say a thing, you say nothing, and then I say a thing and you say something, now my anxiety's up, and it's like, what's going on? What did I do? I'm sorry. And it's like, I'm not even yelling, I'm just telling you I don't want that. And why is that such a surprise? Sometimes, practicing the conversation in your head, which is my favorite thing to do. Because it may feel crazy in the moment, but feelings aren't facts. They're just feedback. You're not crazy. You're preparing. You know, the crazy thing would to go in and just let my feelings do the talking, because that's not gonna help anything. If I get angry or just out of control, I might say something I don't really mean and don't want to do that. So practicing it and kind of having that prepared thing to say is a good way too, to really help yourself get in the habit of being assertive and speaking up for yourself.
So you spend time speaking with couples, married couples, I guess, engaged, whatever. When you said you spoke with dating couples, I guess early in the relationship, with a married couple, maybe you're dealing with established issues, something's going on to the point that they come to you. What do you do in the opposite situation? Maybe they're just dating and maybe they haven't found a problem yet. So what's that kind of conversation? That's
well, the few people that I've tried, when I was joking earlier saying, you know, right when we decided to commit, they tried it. I was like, yeah, no, y'all need more experiences for us to really, you know, gather these things. Because the way I work is I use an assessment, and it has all these different like parts of a relationship that you want to see how alike or how much agreement there is, because you don't have to be alike to be in agreement, right? Like, okay, if I have this interest, they have that interest, I'm okay with my partner riding bikes on the weekend, as long as they're okay with me knitting on Sundays. Like, you don't have to be alike to have agreement. And so if there's not enough evidence of like, we've gone through at least this issue once, it's really hard to kind of gauge. They all seem like, oh, we're very harmonious and everything's good. And it's hard to get them to commit to my process. It's like, okay, well, we gonna dig. I got lots of questions I can help you with. So with the earlier relationships, it's really more of like discovering each other and me kind of giving them the right questions to ask. The ones that you're like, man, why did I never ask that? And it's like, well, because you didn't know to ask. Like asking about family history, asking about your cultural identity or how you define yourself in the context of the world. You know, how do you feel about money? What are your values about money? What did you learn about money? Like, there's so many questions we can ask, and I use the same ones for married couples too. Like I was saying earlier, like being able to remind somebody of why they're connected and realizing like, just because you spend time with a person doesn't mean you know a person. And that's the beauty of a long-term relationship, is that process of discovering with the safety of commitment. Like I can discover you and you're not just going to disappear and then I got to start all over, because that's what most people's fear is, right? I got to start all over. And it's like, well, you can start all over, but you can still be here. Okay, that's okay. I can do that. But nobody thinks about it that way. They're like, oh, you got to start all over. Like, no, everybody wants variety and something fresh and something new. Okay, it's a brand new version of the same person you've known for 20 years. You know, congratulations. Like, so yeah, with the younger couples or the less experienced couples, it's really them allowing experiences to happen, being able to ask the right questions, you know, make sure they have the right questions to ask each other, and really exploring their values on these different topics. Like, what do you believe, so that we have the same foundation? I know from the beginning, well, you said you always thought that, you know, being flashy was beneath you, and now you're sitting here trying to get a Mercedes Benz, and we're arguing about it. And it's like, if the person who's changing is like, oh yeah, I did change. Oh, where did that come from? Either they can check themselves, check in with their partner, like, okay, well, this is why I changed. This is why I'm thinking, you know, well, this is different. This isn't that. And being able to explain yourself, but now you can hold each other accountable to who you said you were versus trying to remember who you said you were, you know, in a long-term relationship. So it can work. It's just the ones that I have had tried, I'm like, all right, I'll see you in 8 months when you've been together at least a year. Because 6 months is a little early. But then I've had couples where they've had a lot of great experiences and they're coming up on their first year. And it's like, one is like, I really, really want this. The other one's like, I don't know. This is usually where I run. So they're acknowledging their own like trauma response. It's like, okay, it's really not this person, it's really me, but I really need some skills to make sure I can feel safe enough to keep going beyond the point I usually jump ship. So that's another way to help younger couples too, is to give them those skills that they might have avoided because they haven't really had a long-term relationship that was semi-successful or, you know, lasted a long time, long enough for them to actually go through some actual conflict.
I like that. I like that. I like you a lot.
Oh, thank you.
So many questions.
Y'all have my jokes. I like it.
I have so many questions. Okay, let me try to narrow it down. How do you navigate being in this world, knowing so much that you do? How do you separate that from your own relationship and your home life, and not try to counsel your
Oh,
partner?
well, I am lucky to have a very empathic partner too, which is a first in my life. Somebody who has like a natural empathy and kind of reads me, so I don't have to initiate as much. Like once I turn off the counseling part, it's like, how was your day? I can't really talk in much detail about my clients. Oh, I had a couple of good sessions. Somebody didn't show, this and that. It's like, okay, sounds like it was a good day. And then I might say something that, oh, I thought I said this. This was so brilliant. Like, and then I'll try to get some, yeah, that sounded real good. Yeah, I'm gonna use that. And like, he's my cheerleader because I'm like, I can't brag about sounding smart to my clients. That's so arrogant. But, I do want to feel like I'm doing a good job, and I can't, ask my clients to do a good job. Like that's doesn't make sense. And so he definitely supports me in that way. When we are having conflict, I've already told him this is what I expect us to do, but it's not more of like, well, you need to do this and I need to do this and you need to do this. It's more of like, hey, this is what I do when I need to have a conversation, or I might get emotional. They're like, I have to have my monthly cry. I'm like, look, this is just my monthly cry. This has nothing to do with you. This is me just offloading all of the emotions that I carry a lot. But I would appreciate if you held me if you can, or appreciate if you left. So just kind of modeling what I teach is really what I can control. As far as like counseling my partner, we talk so much about our history. We've talked so much about our history, and like, we'll just have these hours long conversations about, what we've experienced and just summarize it. And it's like, yeah, that's why I like you. And and we come back to that conclusion at the end of the conversation, and it was a good conversation. That's why I like you, because none of people were trash. And well, they're not trash. Everybody's fine. It's like, don't do that. Don't do that. They trash. Yeah. Like, he'll tell me not to be so Pollyanna about things, and I'll try to keep him from, being so harsh about things. But yeah, it's not as hard as I thought it would be, especially working from home so long with the pandemic. And literally, like, he's walking in from work and he's hearing me talking it all loud and stuff. But yeah, I'm lucky to have a partner that has allowed me to help him understand what I do. And he's not afraid of me doing what I do, because he's told me that it's helped him help his friends, and because he's the person they go to, right? He's that, if you're an empath in your circle, you're the person that everybody tells everything to. And like, he says, yeah, some of the stuff you tell me, I tell my friends, I tell my brother, and it's helped me feel like I can take on this leadership role a little bit better, because I don't have to like roll my eyes and just not say what I really think. I have a nice way to say it, because I say it like you. I was like, oh, that's sweet. So yeah, I am lucky to have the partner I have, because I do have that. And then of course, with friends and family, they ask for advice, and okay, I can give y'all advice because that's free. I don't charge for advice. So you're gonna get the very cut, dry, indirect thing, which is what they expect from me, which is why if they're avoiding me, I know why. They got a thing that they don't want me to tell them about. And that's fine. I love you. It's fine. I'll talk to you in 4 months when you work through it. And then some of my oldest friends, I'm like, they're avoiding me. They're going through something. They don't want to talk to their therapist friend, because then they'll have to deal with it. It's fine. So yeah, I have a good support system. And as far as like colleagues and stuff, I told you I train other counselors. So even sometimes talking to them and really allowing them to see my vulnerability with them, like, hey, I'm struggling with this client, and just having those safe spaces within the community of mental health is good for us too. I also have a therapist I see about once a month, just to kind of, decompress and make sure I'm not, doing something wrong, basically, because that's a part of this job too. It's like, I could have said something wrong. So let me check with somebody who's even more experienced than I am.
I love it.
Is there a difference in your mind of dealing, because we kind of touched on it a little bit, of dealing with people in our culture, dealing with them for therapy versus dealing with people outside? Basically, what is it different being a therapist for a Black person versus a white person? Do you have to come at them differently? A general thing that you might start off
The
with?
time, like since 2020, I am more aware that maybe I am a little different. But then I think back and I'm like, I worked with youth for a lot of my career. And that was probably the best thing for me because I couldn't do the whole, oh, I'm an authority, I'm the therapist, they're not gonna talk to me. Like I had to be myself and connect with them on a real level. And so I just never turned that off when I work with adults. And so even with working with white people, working with Hispanic people, I work with a lot of biracial, interracial families. There is a difference as far as like how you approach things, but I think my style has made it, I've done this long enough to, as far as like, I'm social justice, like that is gonna be talked about. And I write it everywhere. If you're looking for me, I'm going to talk about social inequities and racial inequities and class inequities whenever they show up. And so with Black clients, I may have to make them more aware of the levels that they're experiencing their trauma. Like, not only are you getting that negative self-talk from the people in your house, but you're getting it from a societal level at the same time. And, we can heal this that's happening within there, but how do we help you deal with it when it comes from the bigger place? Now you can see it better when it's coming from the bigger place. So I've gotten even more direct. So with white clients, when they have Black people in their life or people in color in their life, oh, I'm on them. Like, look, what does that sound like? Or did you think about this? So I try to make everyone, whoever I work with, understand the racial dynamics and the cultural dynamics that's happening in their lives on top of their own lives, because that just adds to the pressure, especially for the BIPOC folk. I find that it makes them more relaxed and transparent. Yes, I've turned a couple of white people's faces red, but they have also been able to not carry that white guilt around too. It's like, you don't need to be guilty for all of whiteness, but how are you going to make a difference in the people that you love and you live with? And I've seen it actually make people set firm boundaries. Look, I can't be around grandma no more. Grandma disrespect my partner. I keep trying to play both sides of the field and I can't. And so being able to help people feel empowered and understand I'm making this choice because it's not just about me, it's about my future children. It starts with these little changes in my family to make things better. So as far as like a new therapist learning, yeah, of course you have to approach it differently, but not really. Like, just be yourself and be authentic. And whoever you're working with, and be knowledgeable of the cultures. I think that's where I have a benefit too, because I'm a nerd for sociology and anthropology. I love history. And so I was like, oh, okay, wait, is that this? And they're like, yeah, it's kind of like that. And then like I was saying earlier, people were filling the gaps and they feel like, oh, wow, she actually is interested in my culture. Because I'm interested in everybody's culture. It's just, white culture is a lot more of a volatile space. And now that the conversation's been opened up, it's been easier to make people aware of it and also be a great place for them to offload their anxieties and their fears. And 2020, I had so many Black people like, I don't know what to do. Like, I love my Black friends, but I feel like I've been a bad white person. And like, I got a lot of that. And it's like, stop. You're centering your feelings. What are you actually sad about? Okay. So this part is a part about the race stuff. This part is just about you, following what your culture has taught you. Let's separate the two so that you can be more whole and not feel like you have to feel bad all the time. But yeah, it's difficult if you don't have that racial identity awareness either. I studied developmental psychology after I finished my counseling work, and I worked in counseling for a while, and I was like, I don't know enough. Yeah, I was like, how does mental illness develop in the brain? Like, I needed to know this. So I went back to school for that. But in doing that, I studied at Teachers College Columbia, and it's the same school where the guy who coined the phrase microaggressions, and there was another professor that kind of came up with racial identity formation, like that whole theory. So I was able to really see that up close and like, oh, and that just like, phew, oh, I was already woke. I've been woke since I was 3 years old, but it really gave me the confidence to say, okay, this is going to help people. This is not me being a troublemaker or just starting stuff. It's really going to help people heal if they can really put a name to the little stuff that they put up with in their daily lives, and that you have to develop as a person. And this is just another space that you have to develop who you are as a cultural being, as a racial being. And it's like racial second, because racial is the human construct, whereas culture is something that is actually a thing in the world. Race is something we made up several hundred years ago. And so, yeah, it's a big passion of mine and a big part of the work that I love being able to do, because, you know, there was a time where I had to actually hold my tongue, and I still said stuff, but I just whispered it back then. You know, that's racist, right? To those kids, oh my God, they were like, this is so not. But yeah, it makes a difference. There's some great white therapists out there. I've been trained by some good ones, but you know, you just got to keep your eyes open.
Absolutely. In all things, keep your eyes open. The way to go. Okay, so at this point, I'm sure interest is piqued, because mine certainly is. Where can our listeners get in contact with you, learn more about you, follow you?
Yes, please do all the things.
Yes.
I have a website. It is www.onepiphany.com. It's the name of my company. So ONEPIPHANYLANE.com. You know you made it there when you see this big colorful website with my big smiling face, because it definitely represents my personality. Social media, I'm pretty active on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram, I'm on Epiphany Lane, all one word. And on TikTok, I'm Epiphany Lane. I actually was lucky to get I had a viral video about ADHD a couple of months back. Right now, the algorithm is not my friend. It's kind of keeping my, but following is pretty good. So, you know, please follow. And I try to talk about mental health, and I'm working on a series about couples for the next couple of months, really talking about relationships and things like that. I'm on Facebook under my counseling practice here in Texas, Epiphany Lane Counseling. I do see clients online and in office in Dallas, Texas. I am on LinkedIn. If you would like professional speaking or training, workshops, I do all those things. I create those from scratch, whatever you want. For the most part, I try to make it. And yeah, Twitter, Epiphany Lane, DTX. Not super active on Twitter, so Instagram, TikTok is probably the best bet to actually get me to engage. And then my email address is info at oneepiphanylane.com. So same as the website. And yeah, I respond within a day usually. So if you have questions, I do lives every once in a while on Instagram or TikTok to try to answer questions. And just, you know, like I love this forum. Like you see, I can talk, so it doesn't take much to get a lot of information out of me. And I think that's something I really love about what I do, because it's like, yeah, I really can't give it all away because everybody's unique, but there's so much to give that I don't have to hold back. I can just give. And of course, pour into myself with my self-care routine so that I have something to give. So yeah, website, TikTok, and Instagram are probably the most active places, but I'm all over the internet. So just Tiffany Lindley, Texas will probably be the best, because there's a lot of little white Tiffany Lindleys at Army. My last name is English. So, you know.
Thank you. I think we've enjoyed having you. Phenomenal. Absolutely
Thank
phenomenal.
you so
We'll have
much.
links for all of that in our show notes. I just love you. I love you so much.
Oh, thank you. I would love to come back. I love coming back on podcasts, because then it's like the next time I can get you. Like, okay, let me finish my research. I haven't listened to every show, and I've got time.
Please do that.
We will schedule that.
Yes, yes.
Thank
And then,
you.
I guess the big thing that I have coming up, I am doing a couples coaching course online. It'll be for 10 weeks. And basically it's like a course. And then every week I'll do a live like coaching session, kind of talking about the topic, answering any specific questions. And then I also will be doing a couples membership course. So basically, number one, forcing me to just record all this information. And I'll be doing like live coaching for those members and doing cohorts about maybe every 3 to 4 months. So, a course comes, members come, a course comes, members come, so that there's a community of couples that can support each other. And eventually I would love to be able to train couples to facilitate the same kind of group, because the group is designed for, couples trainers of all levels, not just therapists. And so that's kind of the big goal. Is like, okay, if I can just make mini-me's and then there's more people to kind of help other couples, and they're seeing couples help couples versus just an individual. I think it'll help so many people more than I could just do by myself. So yeah, I'm excited about it. It's my first time doing it in an online form. I've done it as a couples group, a therapy group, but I'm like, okay, you know what? We can bring down the intensity, make it something that's accessible and they can go back to, and really build a relationship with me as kind of a leader, so that they know that they have someone they can go to with those issues without feeling like it's therapy level stuff. We want to prevent the therapy level stuff. That's kind of the whole idea.
I love it. I love it.
So yeah, that'll be, I haven't announced it yet, but by the time, just let me know when you are posting the show, and I can send you the link for the website, the website for the course, because it's separate from my main website.
Of course, definitely. I'm even excited about that.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
might see us again.
Hey,
Hey, all right. Come on. I got paper plans. I've been working hard on it. So I'll probably announce it closer to like right before Valentine's Day, because it's like, all right, let's see what kind of gifts you try to get this year for real. Like, what you talking about? Because if you're not ready for the ring, try this first,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was like, okay, maybe you can't go to Cancun, but this is way cheaper than Cancun. You don't want to go to Cancun and not have a good time because you don't have communication. Y'all don't like doing the same stuff, Oh man. So yes, I'm full of jokes. So that was my other dream job besides counseling, was stand-up comedy. But I figure, captive audience is easier than just going to do an open mic. I don't want to deal with rejection like that.
Oh. You'd be fine.
Not that I would know how to handle it, but still.
You'd be fine. You'd be totally fine.
I think
You guys are awesome. I'm so excited to see how the show sounds. And yeah, please hit me up, later in the year. I would love to come back and chat some more.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I think the idea of mental health can be kind of scary to some people. Having to open up and talk to people. You are incredibly personable. I'm comfortable just talking to you. So you're the kind of person I'm like, you know what? If I have to do this,
Yay!
I'm gonna go talk to Tiffany, because I feel like you can tell me the hard truth in the office, and then we can go have an adult beverage afterwards.
Catch you before you fall. I appreciate that. That is the feedback that I really love to hear, is that I forget I'm in therapy, or I feel like I'm talking to a friend. And that's something I pride myself on, because I didn't like talking to strangers. I can remember going to one of my classes in graduate school. I feel like that's when I had the breakthrough of like, oh, it really doesn't matter. Like, I was in a class, nothing but white women and me, and I'm just pouring my little heart out, and I'm just like, hey, none of y'all gonna treat me like a therapist? Can I get some feedback or something? I'm like, oh, okay. I'm different. That's what I'm feeling, because they just, even my teacher, she's like, okay, so maybe like I had stopped crying for like a minute. Then she asked me how I felt. I was like, could you ask me that 45 minutes ago when I was still sad? I'm fine now. Like, I'm like, shoot, what is life now? I'm sitting here having an existential crisis. Like, I have shown my vulnerability in front of these white people. What am I gonna do? How do you feel? Like a fool, but thank you for nothing. So at that moment, I think I decided, okay, I'm gonna definitely not be afraid of other people's feelings, because there's people out there that don't care. And if I can be the person that cares, I know I'm making a difference, because it would have made a difference in that moment.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Oh,
Wow.
there we go.
sorry,
And on that
bonus
note-
story.
Yes. And on that note, thank you again. Really appreciated it. I think we have absolutely come to the conclusion that love
All right.
is epiphany.
Love, I like that.
Aw,
Love
yay.
is epiphany.
Yes, I think that's awesome.
Love is many things.
But this good love is Black.